Coming up on today's show, Lindsay Hayes holds a dual master's degree in communication and in couple and family therapy. Her graduate research focused on the lived experience of being in a polycule, a project she has since expanded into a longitudinal study, interviewing the same participants since 2022. She's currently pursuing a PhD in counseling studies at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, primarily by distance, where her scholarship continues to explore the dynamics of consensual non-monogamy. Alongside her academic work, Lindsay works part-time as a therapist and resides in Denver, Colorado. Welcome to Loving Without Boundaries, where we hear inspiring stories, share actionable advice, and talk about the challenges and the joys of ethical non-monogamy and polyamory. I'm your host, Kitty Chambliss. Coming up, my conversation with Lindsay Hayes. Welcome back to Loving Without Boundaries, where I am really excited to be here for what I think is going to be just a delightful, awesome, and interesting conversation with Lindsay Hayes. Lindsay, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here and to create this awesome show with me today.
Thanks, Kitty. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yay. Awesome. So I've already shared your bio with everybody, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself in your own words.
Yeah. My name is Lindsay. I'm originally from Oklahoma. Grew up there until I was about 25 and then moved to the Denver area. And these days I am working part-time as a therapist, and I'm a full-time grad student at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. Although I live most of the time in Denver. So it keeps me pretty busy, but that means that I get to study polyamory, which I really, really enjoy.
That's so exciting. At being 56 years old, having gone to art school, I graduated in 1992, and I bring it up because I got to go to the Glasgow School of Art in 1992 for a week.
Oh, I love Glasgow,
which was really cool. And that was all before in 1992. I mean, I'd never heard of the word polyamory. None of that even existed. So I'm super excited that you're able to study what you want, which is, polyamory. I'm excited to talk about that. And I also just got back from visiting Edinburgh. So I'm just a side question. So I know you're working mostly remotely in Denver. Do you still get to go on campus in Edinburgh here and there?
I do. I have to go once a year, and it's such a burden, let me tell you.
Oh.
I'm very fortunate to have a couple of friends who live there, so I also have a free place to stay, which is really handy. So yeah, I go once a year for kind of an extended trip to stay in touch with my advisors in school and everything. Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. That's so cool. And tell me a little bit more, because I find it fascinating. That's your PhD, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So it will be a PhD in counseling studies. And they are kind enough to let me extend my master's thesis study it's a qualitative inquiry of a polycule. So it's been a lot of fun to work on.
That is so cool. And they've been really receptive to that?
They really have. That was one of the reasons I chose that school in particular is one, Scotland is pretty socially liberal to begin with. And two, that particular university and that program, they are, I like to say, radically qualitative. So I figured they would be a really good fit for my research, and they have been. So I feel really lucky.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you, and so delighted for all the work that you're doing that I'm sure will help so many people, both with your thesis and the research that you find, and also the work that you'll be doing in the world with your counseling and your therapy. That is so awesome. So I love to ask what I call, as you know, the light bulb moment. Like, what was there one particular interesting moment, or possibly a series of moments where you realized that maybe just what all the other kids were doing, like, thinking about monogamy and the one and only and the relationship escalator, and maybe that wasn't what your life was going to look like, or you maybe just felt a little different than the other people around you?
I really thought that was going to be what my life looked at like. By my early 30s, I was married to my high school sweetheart, owned a house in Denver. We sort of checked all the boxes that we were supposed to check. And then life kind of took a hard left turn when my husband came home one day and said he was attracted to a friend of ours. And I was pretty scared at first. This was 2011, and we didn't have all of the amazing books and podcasts and resources that we have now. So it was a tough transition at times, but I have no regrets, and I'm so grateful that we opened up. So,
oh wow, so you're still with him?
I am, yeah. We will be married for 20 years next year, so it's been quite a journey. Yeah,
that's fascinating. Partly because also I will be married 20 years next year. Just totally out of curiosity, what's your anniversary?
June 9th.
June 9th. Okay. So my husband and I are both Geminis. His birthday is June 13th. Our anniversary is October 7th. So it's coming up. But yeah, pretty cool. So yeah,
nice.
So you just had your 19th anniversary and you'll have your 20th.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, congratulations. And I'm also glad we're talking because so many times we hear kind of the horror stories and where it leads to divorce. So it's nice to have an inspiring story where your husband came to you. It sounds like maybe he came to you before there was any infidelity.
Yes. They were both very wise and realized, oh, this feels like it could be more than friendship. We should hit pause and talk to our respective spouses and see what we all want to do about that. So yeah, that certainly made it a lot easier that they went and they came and talked to each of their spouses, and then we moved very slowly. Back then, people would give the advice to sometimes move at the pace of the person least comfortable. We oftentimes don't give that advice anymore because I think some folks would kind of weaponize it and sort of use that as an excuse to not actually be working on themselves and to be working on being more secure. But for me and for us, it was really helpful. And they went slowly, and I, gradually discovered that the world didn't end, and that it could actually be a really good thing in the long run.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And are they still together today?
We're still friends with them. I ended up being attracted to her husband as well. So we were actually kind of an accidental closed quad for a couple of years. They moved away. They've since moved back. But we are still friends and see them quite frequently. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing some of the insights on that. And I'm curious, when you said that you started to do research, like at that time, did you all find at least some of the books, or how did you start that journey once that came to light when your husband came to you?
Yeah, we managed to find a therapist who was open to non-monogamy and wouldn't push us either way. And that was really helpful. Took a little bit of time to find somebody. And she recommended Opening Up at the time, Tristan Taormino's book. So we did read that, and that was helpful. But a lot of it was, just sort of us figuring stuff out as we go, and talking even more. So.
Yeah. And thanks for just being really vulnerable and sharing your story, because that's partly how I started this podcast, was just talking at first to everyday people, just normalizing the conversation around this. So I appreciate you giving us some of your background. So what would you say, Lindsay, were some of the initial challenges that you and your husband or the other folks too experienced, and how did you overcome those at that time?
I think so much of it was unlearning the ideals of monogamy, that it is just one person, and the happily ever after element of, just as if people don't grow and change throughout their lives, which is just plain goofy. So I think it was, learning to change and adapt and be flexible according to our needs at that time. And then, to continue to allow that to grow and change. It's not always easy, but I think it's really important to allow people to, explore and change and flex as they will. And monogamy doesn't necessarily let people do that the way non-monogamy does. So just that emphasis on personal growth and change is okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I often say that personal growth tends to be outside of our comfort zone, and that's
absolutely. Yes.
That's probably where, and change is inevitable. So it's partly about embracing change. I think exploring living your most authentic life, if that is consensual non-monogamy, that just means kind of change possibly a little bit faster without a ton of role models.
Yes. Yeah. It's very freeing to throw the rule book out the window, but then you got to make up all your own rules, and that's actually quite challenging. So,
Absolutely. So I'm curious, what's one thing that maybe you wish you'd known before you had embarked on that adventure?
To just maybe trust in myself and trust in us, and just know that things changing is not necessarily a bad thing. To find the good in it. I often see, sometimes there's a meme I see online of just what if everything works out? And so often we don't think about that. When we see change, we immediately think, oh gosh, this is going to be terrible. But what if it actually turns out to be a really good thing, as it did for us? So.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I'll get back to some of that in a minute. Well, I guess I'll ask here, when you said that it turned out to be amazing, like, how do you think it maybe deepened your bond or your connection or your marriage with your husband by going down this path? I mean, especially after being together almost 20 years.
Yeah. I think it really allowed both of us the flexibility to be the person we wanted to be. It opened us up to new hobbies, a wonderful group of friends, and just a deeper sort of intimacy in terms of, really allowing really trying to figure out, okay, maybe if, somebody is dating someone new, oh, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay, what about that is uncomfortable? And then I have to share that with the person I'm most vulnerable with. That's hard work. But it really allowed us to be more vulnerable and honest with ourselves and with each other over time, and realize that it's okay to be vulnerable.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Yeah, I love Brene Brown's work, and she, studies vulnerability and courage. And oftentimes I've found that people can think of vulnerability as a weakness, but it's actually a great strength, and it can create so much more connection and intimacy. And and I feel like there's such a cornucopia of opening in that with consensual non-monogamy that can just create some of the magic of why people pursue it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very cool. So I'm curious, in terms of like how your career and your studies have blossomed, like maybe what were you doing with either your career or your life before all this happened that then brought you to getting your PhD in counseling studies at the University of Edinburgh?
Yeah, I worked for a couple of different nonprofits and really enjoyed my work there, but found that I wasn't close enough to the people that I was helping. So in 2020, I went back to school to start my master's in couple and family therapy. 2020 was an interesting time to start back to grad school, but the pandemic meant that I had no social life. So I certainly all of a sudden had room for grad school. And I went back to school knowing that I really wanted to promote the idea that ethical non-monogamy was an acceptable form of having relationships, because we'd had such a hard time finding a therapist who would be okay with that I knew that was still a need, that we needed more out of that. And I've always just really enjoyed qualitative research. I did that in my first master's degree in 2006. And I think stories are so powerful. I mean, that obviously you're, doing this podcast to get more stories out there of non-monogamy. So I knew I wanted to do that, but I also knew that I wanted to go sort of bigger than a couple that was open, because I don't know, I just saw an opportunity of like, what if I could find a relationship system that was 3 or 4 or even 5 people? And what does that look like? We have so few examples of what that can look like that I knew that's what I wanted to find, and I wanted to be able to tell their story.
Wow, that's so inspiring, and I'm so delighted. And I guess you have seen a little bit of my work and my story, that I've been practicing some form of consensual non-monogamy for about 20 years, identified as poly for 15. And that that alongside that is just a wild ride. There was big, massive breakups. There was people that lived here and now they don't live here with us. And now I'm on the dating apps, so it is a wild ride, and I'm at the point where I may be kind of entering into somebody else's kind of polycule and when molding them into ours, so it's also just an interesting thing to look over the course of a lifetime, what can happen. And I'm sure since 2011, a lot has happened for you as well. So I'm curious, maybe whatever you're comfortable sharing about like where you are on your journey now.
From my journey, I always maintain that I am polysaturated at spouse plus one. And a friend of mine actually gave me this joke, said, honey, grad school is your other partner right now. And I kind of went, okay, yeah, you're not wrong. Takes up a lot of time and attention. So yeah, I still, I live with Daniel, and I do have another partner that is a newer relationship, but we spend a lot of time together. And I've been fortunate to mostly have, kitchen table poly. It's nice, when everybody just kind of gets along and can hang out. That is an important thing to me. I want all of the people who are important to me to be able to spend time together. And so, yeah, my life is kind of just, finding time where I can to spend it with the people that I love.
That's so beautiful. And I'm excited for you. And again, I love too that you started at this place with these circumstances back in 2011, and it's been this journey for you to get to where you are now in terms of your polyamorous life and your polycule, and that's normal. Is it like going back to when we said like change is part of growth?
Change is part of the process. Yep, it is part of the process.
So some people came into your life, some people did, maybe are de-escalated down to friends, and hey, that's how the cookie crumbles, as they say, and that's okay. That's okay. And I love that you're still friends with some of those people from the past too. That's really
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear more about like your longitudinal study. Like, what are some aha moments or anything exciting that you'd like to share from all the research that you've been doing, which I'm so excited about?
Yeah. So that started all the way back in 2021, which feels like a different world. I knew that I wanted a polycule of about 5 to 8 people. Just in part, once we get over 8 people, it starts to be a lot of data, quite honestly. So I got ethics board approval for that. I went out to therapists that serve non-monogamous clients in a few different discussion groups and poly support groups throughout the state of Colorado, and had a few people come forward and say they might be willing to be part of the study. And this group in particular, they attended a call, asked a few questions, seemed like a good fit from my point of view. And several of them were really interested and liked the idea of being part of research that was helping to kind of, normalize the idea of polyamory. So that first time we did a collective activity. So I got all 8 of them together. So 9, including myself. And of course, it was, scheduling that was one of the hardest parts, of course, because we all know the joke about poly people and Google Calendar and busy schedules. So, so we all got together to do a collective activity where I kind of got to know each of them individually and also got to observe them as a group. And then I did individual interviews with each of them. And we actually ended up adding a 9th participant because there was somebody who was really a central member of the polycule. And the nice thing about qualitative research is it's kind of made to be flexible. Sometimes you discover things along the way that you didn't know about, and having a methodology that's flexible enough to integrate that is really, really helpful. So yeah, I interviewed all 9 of them. And then one of the things that I noticed in the data was a lot of them use the term sense of community or community. And I thought, I wonder if we've defined that. We all sort of use that term in everyday language, but what does it really mean? So I went back and found 2 sociologists did actually define the term back in the, I think, 80s. And I kind of looked at their definition and looked at my data, and they lined up pretty well. So in their definition, a sense of community kind of has 4 pillars, and one of them is membership, which is just how do we know who's in the group and who's not in the group? And this group in particular, they have a couple of chats. And, they have some very loose rules around, like, if somebody's going to join the chat, we want to have at least met them a few times. They're, probably geographically in the same area, just so that we can sort of, maintain that as a safe space for those of us who are already members of this polycule. So that was really important to them. There's also the fancy word for it is bidirectional influence, which is basically the individual can influence the group, and the group can influence the individual. So, what I mean by that is it's sort of the group members can sort of say, hey, as a group, we want to have more family-oriented events because some of us have kids and I love to see the kiddos more often. Or if somebody's behavior is maybe not quite kosher, sometimes people have different boundaries around what kind of touch is okay and things like that. So there needs to be the ability of the group to say, hey, these are our norms, these are our standards. And, if somebody gets out of line, we might have to have a conversation. And it's important that that person is non-defensive enough to say, oh, yeah, okay, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. I can adjust my behavior. So that's really important. The third pillar is integration and fulfillment of needs. So, part of it during the pandemic was they would have these Saturday night Zoom calls where they could just sort of show up in whatever state they were in, whether it was, in their words, drunkenly baking in the background or, just quietly observing because if you didn't have a lot of energy to bring, that was okay. And there's also even material needs, somebody's basement flooded. And so they kind of put out the word, like, does anybody have a shop vac? And within a couple hours, there was one on their porch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's really about coming together to meet each other's needs. And then the last pillar is a shared emotional connection. And, they really kind of gelled in the pandemic. It was one particular partner who had 3 partners. And she said, I want all of my people to be able to get together. And they just started having these Saturday night Zoom calls. And in the words of one person, we never would have had a year's worth of Saturdays to get to know one another. But we did because it was the pandemic. And, there was a lot of, like, hey, y'all, today I feel like the world is burning down. Send me, cat memes. I'm having a hard day.
Yeah.
So there really was a sense of that shared emotional connection, even if they weren't able to see each other in person. And all of those things still exist in the group today, I'm happy to say.
Wow. I'm so glad I asked that question and you're able to share that because that's some beautiful research and I've never heard any of that before. So it's really exciting to be able to share that with the world through our conversation here. And so this is fascinating. So the study is literally about this one polycule.
Yep.
Wow.
And I've interviewed them about once a year since 2022. So
that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Is there, and before I move on, and I assume like, they're, the various people in the polycule, they're interrelated, like a constellation, right? Okay. Fascinating. That's really awesome. And I assume some of them are married, some of them live together and some don't, that kind of thing.
Yep. And I've got to sort of watch that change over the years as relationships have changed. There have been some pretty major changes in the polycule, but as a unit, they are still really close. They don't get to see each other quite as much as they used to, as our social lives all sort of resumed. But they still get together a lot. They still have, different shared chat threads and things. So the shape has changed, but the feelings have not over the years.
Wow. What a beautiful thing to say. That's awesome. And so your work is going to continue to follow them kind of indefinitely as long as they'll allow you to?
So I have to finish my degree someday.
Yep.
And I'll interview them one last time this coming spring.
Okay.
And that will make about 4 years worth of interviews, and 2 collective activities. So it'll be 4 years worth of data. part of me does kind of want to be able to check in with them over the course of time, and we have a good enough relationship. I can probably do that, but the study will formally end in the spring. So.
I see. Do you have any sights on the future to do any other similar studies like that?
I would love to be able to kind of look at other polycules, just to see, obviously with one polycule, this is not generalizable, but I'm really curious to see if the sense of community pillars kind of hold up, and if that can be used almost as a guideline of, if you want a healthy polycule, it's not like we have guides for that, but, this could potentially become one, or at least a little bit of here's some things to think about in terms of making sure that you do have a healthy sense of community in whatever size and shape of relationship constellation you have.
Yeah, amazing. I want you to know that I want to encourage you. I assume maybe you might be thinking about publishing your results someday, but I want to give you a formal invitation to come back on the show when you're done and to kind of formally share what you've learned, or you're absolutely welcome to write a blog post for my website. If you want like a platform to be able to share, because this is fascinating, and I think the world needs to have access to it.
Yes, I agree.
And why wait for anybody else to give you permission? I'm giving you permission. So let's create our own stuff that's going to help other people.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So I'd like to formally invite you I'll try and tell my team to reach back out to you, but, please be proactive and reach back out to me.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you back on, and I'd love to publish an article on your behalf on my website.
Yeah,
so I think this is really, really important work that you're doing, and I'm deeply happy and proud of you for doing that, because I'm sure that's not easy, because a lot of people are like, Polly, what?
It's a lot of work, and I'm very passionate about getting this research out into people's hands. It doesn't do any good if it just sits in the ivory tower, so to speak. So
exactly,
it's important
and that's
to me
why,
that others can benefit from whatever it is I find.
1,000%. Yeah, and I don't want you individually or collective you to just keep waiting for somebody else to give you the green light. Let's just give ourselves the green light. So that's awesome. So, and I want to thank you for sharing all of this with us as you're doing it. That is amazing. Before we go into the lightning round, is there any question I didn't ask you, or any message you'd like to say before we do some of those quick, fun lightning round questions?
I think we've covered most of it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. No worries. Cool. So let's go into the lightning round. I don't always do this, but I know you prepared, so I want you to use what you prepared. So one of the questions, and you get to answer it the way you would like to. What is your best advice you've either ever received, or maybe the best thing that you've done along your journey of living your most authentic life?
I think it really is for me. I'm so happy that I came back to grad school. I love research a lot, and I love being a therapist. I really, really enjoy spending time with my clients and helping them, if they want to sort of unlearn monogamy and have good, solid non-monogamous relationships. It's really, really fulfilling work. So I look forward to continuing to do that.
That's awesome, and thank you for the work that you do. How about, what would be one tip you might share with somebody who is maybe either thinking about opening up an existing relationship, or maybe dipping their toe into some form of alternative relationship, such as consensual non-monogamy?
Yeah, we are so lucky to have a lot of great books and podcasts such as this one on non-monogamy. So use those resources, read the books, listen to the podcast, and talk with your partner about them. Form a little, book club of 2 or 3 or what have you. I like to tell my clients that if you think you're talking too much about polyamory, you might be talking enough. In other words, it's so much talking. And, it just makes the road that much smoother when you have communicated as much as possible about the changes that may be happening in your relationship.
Yeah, very well said. And so true. I found from personal experience as well. How about, is there a book, a movie, or a resource that you can recommend that maybe helped you on your journey?
So my journey was, long enough ago that in 2011 that it was really opening up in the ethical slut. But that said, I have also really enjoyed both of Jessica Fern's books. I think they're really helpful. The second edition of More Than Two is a really, really fantastic resource. That might be my single favorite because it covers a lot. It really does.
Okay, that's awesome. I read most of the first edition, which was quite long, and I have not gotten a chance to read the second edition yet, and even did an interview, of course, with the author. But it's good to know that you recommend it.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And then lastly, for fun, is there a particular song or music that really moves you or inspires you?
I've been listening to a lot of Paris Paloma lately. I just think that their stuff is really fantastic. There's one song in particular that starts out with a voiceover from Emma Thompson, of all people, saying, "I knew I'd have to watch Powerful Men burn the world to the ground someday. I just didn't expect them to be such losers." And I think that's just hilarious. So I really enjoy their music. And yeah, they're my favorite right now.
Yay, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Well, Lindsay, just really delightful conversation, as I figured it would be once I got to know a little bit more about you. And just thanks again for booking the time with me today, for being flexible about our conversation, and absolutely for all the work that you do. And I'm literally imploring you to please reach out next year so that we can do another call and possibly work together on getting a blog post out there that can help even more people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. Thanks, Kitty.
That's awesome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Oh, and where can people find you and your work?
So my website is llhayes, HAYES.com. And on that, there's a contact form. There's a little bit about my research on there. So yeah, if people want to know more, llhayes.com.
Yay. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard, are struggling with some aspect of your relationships, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit to work with me as your relationship coach, here's what I invite you to do next. Head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That's lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply, and book a call to speak with me. I'll get on the phone with you for about 45 minutes, and we'll get you crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, exactly what's not working well in your relationships right now. Number 2, ideally where you'd like to be and what might be getting in the way. And number 3, the exact strategy to get you there, helping to close that gap. Remember, creating healthy, open relationships does not typically happen by itself. Many often need expert guidance to make it happen. We've helped clients all over the world to feel safe, happy, and secure in open relationships while not losing their mind or their cherished partners. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. I'm Kitty Chambliss, and let's talk soon.